Hello and welcome to the Kiran and Kiran show. Today we're going to be just discussing some of the hotter topics in sports, and we'll be streaming to Anchor podcasts, and then Twitch and YouTube. Um, so this is the first stream in a while. So let's get into it. Lots of good things going on. NBA got the draft combine. Obviously baseball. There's still a lot of work left to do, and uh, trying to get the uh, trying to get things back together. But so Kieran, what do you
Mm.
think about what's going on in the NBA right now? John Morant's having just an incredible tear, and this seems like the Lakers, who were supposed to do well, really just like it seems like the Lakers are really just like struggling.
Yeah, I think. Look, the problem with the Lakers is obviously they kind of did try to go all in this year, and they made moves like the Russell Westbrook trade that haven't worked out. And yes, they're wasting one of LeBron's last great seasons, and he doesn't really deserve to be in this kind of a team environment. He should be on a contender. But that said, they made a lot of these moves at his request. He made his bed, and now he has to lay in it. So he does certainly deserve some share in the blame for why they've been struggling lately, even though he as an individual has been performing well. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, obviously they've got Anthony Davis out, but even before that, they were just barely struggling to stay in
Yeah.
playoff contention. Now they're close to falling out of the playoff picture. Um, they're in the play-in spot right now, but they're 8 games under 500, and they've lost 4 in a row now, and it's just not looking bright for them. So I feel like, I mean, this is just they don't have their first round pick. I mean, something's got to turn around, and I don't know if it's Westbrook has not been good at all. I don't know if it's Davis coming back. I don't know what it's going to be, but this team is just they're not good. And I mean, LeBron is having a great season, yes, and I agree. He does deserve some of the blame in this because obviously he was the one who wanted Westbrook. I think look, Buddy Hield isn't a great player, but he's a good shooter, and he would have fit this team a lot more because what you want to do is you want to surround Braun with shooters, and you already got AD. So it would have made more sense to have a complementary player, but they got a little greedy. They want another star, and it's been a horrible experience so far. Westbrook, well, I feel like things sometimes get blown out of proportion with him. He's been not good at all. So it's just been really a rough go for them. We'll see if they can turn it around, but like
Right.
I don't get how they're gonna do that. I mean, Davis is still out for another while, and they're just getting blown out after blowout. I mean, and it's not even Vogel's fault. I mean, it's not like there's anything you can do about it. They're just not a good team, man. Sure, you got guys like Malik Monk that are playing well. Austin Reeves
Right.
has been really solid for them, but they're just that. I mean, they don't, they're just not good. They're not good enough, and we'll probably see them. I'd be very surprised if they completely miss out on play in or anything altogether. And I think if they get to the play in, if they got AD healthy, sure they'll grab a playoff spot. But like considering how many picks they've traded away, sure they got their championship, but you got to be looking for more here. I mean, you're not. I wouldn't just be content to be 9, 10, 8 seed and just fizzle out.
Right. And they've benefited from the West being really weak in the middle, past the top few teams,
Yeah.
the Suns, the Grizzlies, the Warriors, the Jazz, etc. The whole playing picture. You have the Pelicans, who are 10 games below 500. They're currently in one of the playoff spots. The Oklahoma City Thunder, whose entire strategy is trading all their players for picks, building solely for the future, are 20 and 42 and only 6 games out of the play-in. The West is not
Yeah.
strong right now towards the middle and the bottom. So they are probably going to sneak into the playoffs because at the end of the day, I just don't see them missing the playoffs with LeBron,
Yeah.
especially with this plan and if Davis is healthy. But they're not going to go far because, like you said, they simply are not a good team, and LeBron can only take them so far. Westbrook, he's a notoriously bad playoff performer, and he's been bad this regular season too. This is I see them being first round exits probably as like a 8 or 7 seed. Um, and maybe if they get lucky and LeBron just goes off and Davis is healthy and he has a great series, they could make it to the second round. But I really don't see them making a run this year.
Yeah. And speaking of the Pelicans, you brought up, the Pelicans have been playing a lot better lately. Since making the CJ McCollum trade. I mean, who knows with AD out, maybe they'll leapfrog them. They're not very far behind at all. They're just how far back? They're just a game back from the Lakers from the 9 seed and that first playing spot. So I mean, a lot of things can happen. The Pelicans, obviously the Kings, even after making that Sabonis trade, we're still they're still not a great team. They're not really good at all. But they blew them out by 30 points, and they beat the Lakers also by almost 30 points, and they beat the Suns without CP3. They beat them by 15. So this is a Pelicans team that's up and coming. What do you think about them?
Mhm.
And without
Yeah,
Zion too,
right.
they've
And I think the Pelicans are in an interesting situation because of Zion. They've been they don't have a great record, but they've been improving as of late. They have some nice pieces. They have Brandon Ingram, who's getting better and better. And you have nice supporting pieces like Jonas Valanciunas and now CJ McCollum. They have a stud rookie and a great defender in Herb Jones. And this
he's
is all
great.
without Zion. I don't. Now there's reports that he's seeming detached from the team. He hadn't. After McCollum got traded, Zion and McCollum didn't speak to each other for a while. And so now with these concerns about Zion's work ethic, I think they're probably being overblown, but
Yeah,
you'd like to have seen him return a while ago now. I think they can be really scary if they can put everything together and have Zion healthy, because Zion, when healthy, he's been fantastic. There's no doubting that he has the talent, but it's just a matter of staying on the court for him. So, if he can just if he can get out there and play some basketball, I think the Pelicans can make a decent run in the playoffs this year.
yeah. And actually, Herb Jones, who you brought up, they drafted Trey Murphy in the first round with like the 17th pick. Herb Jones, they took in the second round, and Herb has played more like the first round pick so far. Herb was in Rising Stars game. I mean, I was watching the game against the Kings as a Kings fan, and he was quiet until the second half, but he made some really big plays on defense. He's a great defender, and he ended up with 14 points in the game. He's averaging 9.5 a game. He's been a really, really, really good player, and obviously was a senior coming out of Alabama. He's polished, but he's just been really, really big for them. And I feel like this team, I mean, Jackson Hayes has been really solid this year as well. I feel like this team, if they had Zion, could really like push and maybe even get to like an 8 seed, maybe not even be in that play in, maybe not be in the outside of the play in, looking in like they are now at the 10 seed, trying to um, with a tougher route to get into the playoffs. But
Mhm.
we'll see with them. I mean, I was impressed. Obviously, they've still got a lot of work to do in getting themselves a better chance getting to the playoffs. They got to keep winning, but they're looking pretty good right now. So we'll see about that. And then
Right.
the Trailblazers still. I mean, Damian Lillard's out for the season. They broke it down. They're playing for next year. Cleared up some money. They're still good. I mean, they're still. I mean, they aren't good, but they're still one, 1 game back from the Pelicans, 2 games back from the Lakers.
Right.
And
Not good, but they have an outside shot at the playoffs just because of how weak the rest of the
yeah,
West is.
it's such a weak division. And who knows? Dame isn't supposed to come back all year, but I mean, if they're still in that, I mean, you wonder if maybe he's okay for a playing game or something like that. But Anthony Simons has just been terrific for them. He hasn't he's slowed down a little bit more over the last couple games, but he's been just before that he was putting up 30, 30, 30. He's just been a terrific player. Obviously, night before it wasn't as good. He's got to get his efficiency back up, but he's just hitting his threes. He's hitting everything. It's been fun to watch. So he's honestly a candidate for most improved. Obviously, you got guys like John Morant too. But I just it's such an interesting situation in the bottom of the West. I mean, all these none of these teams are really that good, like Lakers. Pelicans. I mean, the Lakers should be good, but they're not. And I mean, who knows what'll happen with that situation? Another team made a bunch of moves at the deadline. The Kings,
Mhm.
obviously trading Halliburton, Buddy Hield, Tristan Thompson for Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday, and a second round pick. Very controversial trade, obviously, but it does pair Fox with a great big man, all star caliber guy. Um, we had, I mean, as a Kings fan, I've watched a lot of our games. I mean, it started out good, and the pairing, I think the pairing works as long as Fox is playing defense. But Fox has just been so good over these last stretches on the offensive side of the ball. It's just that there's just not enough shooting. There's not enough other stuff around him and Sabonis.
Mhm.
They've got Barnes, who's a really good player, really solid contributor. But over this offseason, obviously, I mean, honestly, if I was them, I'd just break it down.
Right.
At
And I
some
think,
point, rest them, get that pick. But they're I mean, who knows? They're also a couple games back from a playing spot.
right.
What do you think about them?
It was certainly controversial to trade Halliburton, and I kind of understand why they trade Halliburton instead of Fox, because Fox, we've at least seen that he has really high upside. You know, he can be a true star player for the Kings. But this year he hadn't he took a bit of a step down from the previous season. Halliburton's a bit younger than Fox, and it seemed like he might be the future. Now he's gone. And Sabonis helps, but at the end of the day, this team is nowhere near competing for a championship. They might not even get into the plan this year. They probably won't. And then even still, if they do get into the plan, there's no way, in my opinion, they make that playoffs. So
Yeah,
I do agree they should tear it down. The Kings have the longest playoff drought in the NBA. I think in NBA history.
yeah, yeah. No,
So
no. If we miss the playoffs
right,
this year, it's the longest drought in NBA
yeah.
history.
So they've had some problems for a while now, and they've had some high picks, and a lot of them haven't worked out, such as Marvin Bagley. Um,
Yeah,
there's This is kind of an organizational problem at this point because they've really been futile for quite a long time now, and there's no easy way out with this team. They do have some nice players to build around. Fox seemed like could be a guy to build around. Davian Mitchell, I wasn't a huge fan of the pick, but he's been solid for them so far. He
yeah.
could
He
also
just
be
got to
a
get
nice
his
contributor.
efficiency up.
Right. So they have some nice young pieces, but they're a ways away from being contender. They have to really fully enter rebuild mode again, and that's why I don't really like the Sabonis trade for them because it pushed them a little bit more into playoff contention mode when they're simply not a playoff caliber team. There's no way
Yeah,
around it, and I feel
exactly.
like that Sabonis trade didn't really fit with what their long term goals should be.
No, yeah, and even if that's even if they do go they went to the playoffs, even if it got a play in spot, their first round exit, it's not like they're going anywhere. I mean, now, I mean, obviously, I don't think there's any way they can just sit them down now, but maybe in a couple games, something like that. If things really start to fall off the rails, maybe you think about resting them. Right now, sixth, sitting around the sixth pick. There's any way at all during the lottery they jump into the top three. That's a dream scenario because just another like bigger forward would just be I really ideal, and I think any one of Banchero, Smith, and even Holmgren we could run. I could see Holmgren can stretch the floor, so him and Sabonis could work pretty well. He's a great rim protector. Smith is a knockdown shooter. I like Smith the most out of all of them. I really like Banchero and Holmgren too. If there's any way they start to drop. I mean, I could definitely see this team finishing in the bottom five, especially if decide to bench people during the last stretch of the season. I mean, there's a way they can become a good, solid team that makes the playoffs consistently if they just focus. If they can grab a player here, make a couple of trades. Obviously, I don't think Barnes is really I think we should have traded Barnes last trade deadline, but I mean, if we're trying to win, he's fine to have around. And there's a bunch of other pieces. Rashawn Holmes is as good as gone this offseason. I was surprised he wasn't gone this trade deadline. But again, this obviously, like you said, not a very good team. They're
Mhm.
not playoff caliber. Maybe in a little bit, they'll be playoff caliber. But lastly, for the NBA MVP race, what do you think about that?
Right now, I think it probably comes down to one of either Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, or Giannis Antetokounmpo. And Embiid and Jokic were the two top candidates last year. Um, well, and Steph Curry, but Embiid possibly could have won, but he dealt with some injuries in the second half of the year. I think this year, though, he might be the favorite just because he's been so great for the Sixers. And right now they're the 2 seed. They could catch Miami. I don't know. Miami's playing some great basketball right now, but even with this James Harden trade, Embiid is unquestionably the best player on the Sixers. And there's a bit of an argument to be made that his stats aren't quite as meaningful as Jokic. But I just think, look at the way he's truly dominant for them. I just don't. I could see it being Jokic as well, and I could see it being Giannis. I really wouldn't be mad with any of them, but right now I'd give it to Embiid. What about you?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I mean, Embiid is averaging just about 30 points, 12 rebounds on 50% shooting in 33 minutes per game. That is ridiculous caliber numbers, and his team is really good, and it's as a product of him. He's been ridiculously dominant. He can drop 50 on you. He can also grab a bunch of boards. He's the reason the Sixers team has been as good as they have been, even without guys like Simmons and even with Harris really underperforming. I mean, he's a terrific player, and you gotta give the MVP to him. I think right now. I mean, Jokic just had a phenomenal year, and I could definitely see him, Giannis, or maybe even who knows. DeRozan's had an incredible year if he can edge out. I mean, we've seen him go on some hot streaks of 40. He had one streak where he had like 10 straight like 30-point games, something like
Right.
that. He's
DeRozan has certainly been a
amazing.
move that's really
Yeah.
helped the Bulls out. They would not be where they are this year without him. I just don't know that he's performed as well individually as he would have to win the MVP award. And he's
Yeah.
certainly been fantastic. I just don't know if he's been on the level of Embiid, who, as you said, is
Yeah.
averaging 30 and 11. He's been a fantastic defender.
Yeah.
And DeRozan, he kind of reminds me, his MVP case is a little similar to Chris Paul last year, a newcomer who really elevated his team to new heights. But
Yeah.
I just think Embiid as an individual player deserves the award.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree, but yeah, DeRozan averaging 28 and 5 on 51% shooting. He's a terrific player. And then of course John Morant, he's come on as of late, and who knows, he's really polarizing. He's fun to watch. I don't think an MVP is in store for him this season, but obviously in the future, we'll watch out for him. He's also averaging about 28 points a game. He's had some ridiculous games as of late. And yeah, I think those two, Ja and DeRozan, could end up finding themselves somewhere inside the top five. Obviously, both have tendencies to get hot, have some big games, so we'll see. But yeah, I'd have to agree with you on your top three right now of Embiid, Jokic, and Giannis, and I've got to say it's got to be Embiid. So now NFL
Mm.
draft combine. Draft combine was yesterday, still going on all during the weekend. They've got meetings and stuff like that. So why don't we do? Why don't you give me your
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk
favorite
about
player?
the combine.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yesterday we had the quarterbacks, receivers, and tight ends going. What
Yeah.
player do you think boosted the draft stock the most last night?
Hmm. There's a lot of players that really performed well. I mean, Chris Olave, at first we thought he'd run a 4.28, and that would have been really great. But it turned out later he run a 4.39.
Yeah.
Obviously still fast, but not as good. I mean, that really could have boosted his stock for me. Obviously, you got guys like Taekwon Thornwell. really being just putting themselves in the conversation. We thought his unofficial time was a record breaker, which was
Right.
very impressive, but turned out again. I don't know what was up with the unofficial times
Yeah.
yesterday. It kept bugging out. I thought he'd broken the record. That would have been crazy, but no. But
So, and I think
who
even
do you
though
think wins?
he didn't get the record, Taekwon Thornton still did himself a huge favor
Yeah,
last night because he thrust himself into the limelight for a few hours. Everyone knows his name now. A lot of teams who might, obviously these teams know who all these guys are, but he certainly gave himself a little fame for just a few hours, but it was enough to really stick his name in the mind
yeah,
of some GMs, I assume. And 4.28 is still crazy fast.
yeah. And I think
He showed
there's
that
no way
speed.
after
I
that
haven't watched
he's
any of
gonna
his
go
film, to be
undrafted.
honest. I barely even heard of him prior to last
Yeah,
night. Um,
same. Yeah,
but I'm sure that speed will appeal to teams. There's always a few teams who just fall in love with some speedy prospect, and and he may end up getting overdrafted because of this. But you know what? Good
yeah.
for
No,
him.
I could definitely see that happening. But the thing is also, he's speedy, but he's also 6'3", so he's
Hmm.
got some size. I mean, who knows? Like, if he gets to a good developmental system, he could turn it. They could turn him into something. He's got the physical and he's got the skills. So we'll see with him. Malik Willis, I feel like also did himself favor this weekend. Obviously, just he had a really fine showing on the football side of things. Obviously, showed we also got to see some character as
Yeah,
he was giving back to I think it was a homeless person
yeah.
outside the outside Lucas Oil Stadium. But no, yeah, I think Malik Willis is someone who we could see a team take a shot on early, and I feel like his draft combine, it wasn't amazing, but it was enough to like at least give yourself something to be like, all right, I can take this guy early and I can develop him into being a franchise quarterback. Obviously, he hasn't had much crazy competition, but he's got all the skills. He's got a massive cannon arm. He's really fast, mobile, and I think he's got all the skills to be an elite star NBA. Sorry, NFL player. But it's just going to come down to where he ends up, kind of developmental system he has. I mean, I feel like if he ends up in a kind of situation like Mahomes, he can really be just maybe a game changing quarterback. I mean, he's got to have.
Mhm.
I feel like he does have to have maybe a year on the bench or at least some games on the bench to get him prepared because I don't think coming off the competition he did in college, I don't think he's ready. Even though he is a little bit older, and some other prospects, I think he still needs maybe a
Mhm.
year. What do you think about Malik?
I think Malik Willis, he has easily, in my opinion, the most athletic and arm talent in this draft out of all the
Yeah, for
quarterbacks.
sure.
His upside is sky high, but you know, there's a lot of concerns about him. When I watched this film, there were a few times when I just wish he did not run so fast. He needs to do a better job going through his progressions, and he did do that better at the Senior Bowl. It's something that I'll have to get more consistent at, though. The decision making in general is a bit
Yeah,
of a concern. And of course, he's a great scrambler. He has a cannon for an arm. So the physical traits are there. But, once he can really work on his decision making, I think, you know,
yeah.
and he didn't turn the ball over a ton, but it's still also something that he should work on. And it's worth noting that he played behind a really bad offensive line at Liberty. He
Yeah,
was
Liberty.
not
Yeah,
given
they
any
they,
help by
did,
them
they just didn't have any
whatsoever.
weapons for him.
Right. So that's not going to be a problem, hopefully, for him in the NFL draft, you know, with whatever team he gets picked to. And because even, five NFL caliber offensive linemen, even if they're not good offensive linemen, it's going to be better than what he had at Liberty. And, if he gets lucky, maybe he gets drafted to a team like the Lions with a decent offensive line, right? So, and then
Yeah,
another guy who I thought had a fantastic combine was Christian Watson. So he ran a 4.2840. That was his unofficial time. I think his official time might have been a bit lower than that. He was very fast in the 40, right? He has this
I
speed
see.
score in the 99th percentile, that which factors into players' weight. and a burst score in the 94th percentile. And he is 6'4", right? He's huge. He had a great week at the Senior Bowl, and I could see him possibly sneaking in the first round. This is a very deep class of receivers, but
he got
trying to make a
wait,
noise for
wait,
himself.
sorry, real quick. He got
Yeah,
his unofficial was 4.28, but he actually ran a 4.36 really
yeah,
fast still though.
that's right.
He's a bigger guy too.
Hmm. Right. So, I mean, we've seen some guys, some bigger guys recently run fast times. DK Metcalf comes to mind.
Yeah.
I think Christian Watson kind of could be a similar type of player in the NFL. So, I do think because of how we've seen these bigger bodied receivers succeed lately, and also this is a guy with great athleticism. I think his physical traits can be very appealing to some NFL teams, and he could end up being picked in early day two, maybe even the first round come draft night.
Yeah. And I think, another guy, another receiver, maybe can just be a weapon. Calvin Austin, the third, ran a 4.32. I honestly before the combine, I started making a big board. It was getting bigger, and I honestly am higher than on him than most. I feel like his speed is just such an asset. And I feel like there's so many things in the NFL you can teach. Speed and size aren't them. And I feel like he's got that game changing speed. We'll see. I
Right,
mean,
but
I
as he
gotta
got
watch up on him more,
size,
but that's that. I mean, if you got like that kind of trait, somebody's gonna take a chance on you. So,
right,
and also, back to Malik Willis for a second. Yeah, I'd have to agree. I feel like if I were confident taking any quarterback in this class in the top 10, I think I'd go with him, even though he does have I think he does have a lower floor than some of these other guys like Pickett. His upside just is too much to pass on. And I
yeah,
think if I'm a team that knows or at least believes I can develop him, I'm definitely taking a chance on him if I'm QB needy.
yep, he's my QB1 because
Yeah,
Pickett
same.
Pickett's a safer pick, I think, but he doesn't have the upside as well as, and he did run a fantastic 40-yard dash. He's
Yeah.
not, his mobility is a little underrated, but he's has nowhere near the athleticism of Willis, and he doesn't have a great arm either. The hand size is, as much as it may be um, mentioned, it is certainly a concern. We don't know how that'll hold up in the NFL, because especially in difficult weather, that could be an issue, and it could lead to more fumbles for him. So that's certainly something that we'll have to keep an eye on. But yeah, Willis is my QB1,
Yeah.
and because just he has his upside alone makes him worth the investment to me. Perhaps he does not work out. I could see him being a kind of inconsistent backup with high upside, sort of like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I
Yeah.
would see him sticking around the league for a while. But, that said, he could also be out of the league after his rookie contract is up if he really does flame out. It's a boomer bust pick, but I think he does have what it takes to succeed.
Yeah.
Um, so then recently, just today, actually, the news broke that the Cowboys are most likely going to release Amari Cooper, and they'll seek a trade for him. But now that it's known that he'll be released, I doubt any team's going to trade for him.
Yeah.
So, what team do you think might sign him, and what does it mean for the Cowboys?
I mean, this is a big move for them. I mean, I understand cutting him because obviously he did have a little bit to say about their offense and how they were running it last year and he didn't have a particularly amazing season, but he's still a really good player when he's on the field. And I feel like the Browns are the best landing spot for him. I mean, he might not go there because, well, who knows with Baker Mayfield? Like, I feel like for him that might not be the best decision in his career. But I feel like the Browns really, really, really need that number one type of guy for Mayfield. They've got their running backs. They've got a good defense. If Baker comes back healthy, if Baker comes back playing well, which obviously isn't a given considering how he played this year, but I feel like he's going to be more healthy next year. I feel like he will at least improve a little bit. So I feel like Amari and him could be a nice duo, and I feel like the Browns make the most sense.
Mm-hmm. My best fit for him would probably be New England because the Browns do make sense, as you said, but the way I see, at pick 13, they have a good chance to be the first team that
Yeah.
takes a receiver. The
You could
Falcons could
also
take a receiver as
wait.
well, but they also, if a guy like Kyle Hamilton, Kayvon Thibodeau, maybe even Derek Stingley falls, the Falcons probably go him. So, yeah, the
Yeah.
Browns, there's a good chance they'll have their pick of any receiver in the draft they
Yeah.
want. And there's
Still though, I mean, like, I could see them pairing Amari with another guy, like at maybe at 13 or second round. I mean, they just need weapons.
I could certainly because especially after the loss of Odell Beckham,
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield is not such a good quarterback in my opinion, but he doesn't have great help right now with his receivers. Jarvis Landry's past his prime, and he's not terrible anymore, but he's nowhere near an alpha. So they do need weapons. But I think the Patriots make the most sense because you have Mac Jones, guy who had a very good rookie season. He doesn't have a ton of upside, I don't think, in the NFL, but if they can surround him with great weapons, they have a legitimate chance to be a Super Bowl team, when he's in his rookie contract. Because odds are if he continues this level of play, he's going to want a pretty big deal. And I don't ever see him being a true star quarterback. So they're most likely going to have to overpay for him, which will then hamper their ability to sign these elite weapons around him. Guys, and they made a bunch of free agent signings this year, such as Matt Judon and Kendrick Bourne. You know, so because of these guys, that's why they had such a good record this year. Obviously, they got blown out in the playoffs, but the Patriots do have a pretty bright future ahead of them, at least for the next few years before it's time to really pay Mac Jones.
Yeah.
So signing a guy like Amari Cooper could help him really have. Amari Cooper is not quite elite, but he can be very good. He did take a step back this year.
Yeah.
He has that upside, and he isn't super old. I believe he's 28 right now.
27. He'll be
27,
28 next season when next season starts.
right? So he does have some good years left, and
Yeah.
I
No,
think
yeah, I think when
right.
he's on the field, he can be close to elite. Yeah.
hmm And then for the Cowboys, I think this move signifies that they have intentions of re-signing Michael Gallup. I believe
Yeah.
that was also a report that came out today. But Gallup is a free agent. He is coming off an injury, I believe a torn ACL,
Torn ACL,
and
yeah.
he also
It was a clean tear
missed
though, so it shouldn't be any.
right, and he also missed a large portion of this previous season. I don't remember what his injury was, but
Yeah, he's
from
been really injury
week
prone.
3 until like
Years
week
lately.
14, right, a very large portion of the season. So he's certainly a bit of a risk coming off of that this injury riddled season. But when he's on the field, he's very talented. And they need a number 2 guy to pair with CeeDee Lamb. Cedric Wilson isn't bad, but he's not on par with Gallup.
Yeah.
And he's their franchise receiver. They're set with him
Yeah, no,
for a
he's
while.
ridiculous.
They get 3 more years out of him. Then they probably do give him big money because right
Yeah.
now it looks like he's going to deserve it. But Gallup, I think, complements him very well. He's familiar with their system. Obviously, it's kind of a no-brainer at this point for them to re-sign him.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And lastly, the MLB still in lockout. I mean, we're gonna see how long it takes to get a deal. But what do you have any like? Do you have any point of view on this? Do you have anything to say about the lockout?
I mean, there's not a ton to say that hasn't already been said a million
Yeah.
times about this lockout. But obviously, I'm just really hoping that baseball resumes as soon as possible. It's not looking great right now because these owners are not. The owners want 14-team playoffs, and
Yeah.
to be honest, I don't see that happening. The players probably wouldn't want that because it makes the regular season not nearly as meaningful. It's such a long regular season. No other sport even compares to it, and you not want to devalue that. And that's part of what I love about baseball. The playoffs are very exclusive. I thought 8 teams was honestly fine before they had the wild card spot. 10 teams is fine as well. The bracket makes perfect sense right now, though.
Yeah.
I think expanding the playoffs would
I
be
don't.
very
Yeah, I don't. I
unnecessary.
wouldn't. I don't like the
Mhm.
expanding playoffs thing.
Right. And just from a pure lockout and negotiations perspective, I do stand with the players here.
Yeah,
But
I would
again,
too.
there's not a ton to say on this subject. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, I just hope things get resolved. I mean, eventually, something's gonna happen. If you saw Mike Trout's post yesterday, he said something
Yeah,
about holding it out for the younger generation, and I understand it. Look, from the player's point of view, sure, you could tell them they're making billions of millions of dollars, but these owners are also worth billions, so it's not like I mean they aren't there too. I mean, it's always tough with these kinds of situations when the CBA is over and you got to make a new one, but eventually they will come to terms. The only thing I'm scared about is when, because the players this
right.
time, I don't know if it's I mean I do think it a lot, but it's been in my mind before. This seems like a time where the CBA actually could take a lot longer because the players actually seem very, very, very intent on
Hmm.
getting the best deal possible. And while it might not happen, we might see them cave eventually. If any time they weren't going to cave, it would be now. So
Yeah,
that's what I think. So
right.
with that, anything else to add, or is that it?
Yeah, just what scares me is that the owners are not really hesitant to cancel games. So I
Yeah,
feel like they're not afraid to draw this out for a while, and the players may
yeah,
not be having to cave. I just hope these sides can come to an agreement pretty
yeah.
quickly.
And the thing is, with dragging it out, canceling games, players start to lose their paychecks,
Right.
and
And you
that's
end up
when
losing more money. That's all
they're
the
going to
owners
feel
really
it
want,
there.
money. So
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense for anyone.
yeah. No, yeah, things are just losing money. I wish both sides are really stubborn. They won't even meet that much. I mean, got to be meeting every day, but it doesn't seem like they have another meeting on the horizon now that they didn't pass that one, and now seasons pushed back. I mean, we're gonna cancel games. Players' game checks aren't gonna be making any money, so it's a really tough situation for the MLB, and hopefully things get resolved, but we'll see. I mean, I could see this drawing out another couple weeks, maybe even a month, something like that. I mean, both sides don't. I mean, there's got to be a light at the end of the tunnel, but just aren't seeing it yet. You thought maybe last night, couple nights ago, something would happen because you heard good news. Something was happening. Manfred said for the first time in a while, something seemed to be going on, but no agreement was came to. Games
Hmm.
are getting canceled now.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a while. So with that, I think we're going to conclude the broadcast. Thank you
Yeah.
for tuning in. This is the Kiran and Kiran Show.